That's great. Oh wow, no pressure. I remember coming in as a councillor in 2017. No aspirations to do anything more than just help folk in my community, help folk in some of the most challenging time in their lives. And I'm really proud to have been able to do the Deputy Provost role as well as being able to champion folk. I remember when it was Dougie that had said to me, "Well, thinking about making you Deputy Provost, Claire," and there was me, a wee 26-year-old lassie who all can let with ADHD and I'm flapping and all this. And I'm like, I'm not a Provost though, because I don't know what perception I had of somebody in a civic role, but it wasn't a wee mosher lassie like me. And it was, do it for a month. If you don't like it, we'll find somebody else. That was absolutely fine. The amount of folk I met in that 1 month kind of wee trial period for me was outstanding. And it really taught me that there's loads of bad things happening in the world, and there is a lot of really depressing things happening in the world, but there's so much good stuff happening in our communities. And there's so much good folk out there who truly care about people and who really do go the extra mile, that are like truly the unsung heroes of our communities. And since champion folk like our recovery community, our young folk, our people facing domestic violence, our LGBTQ+, our young carers, and every general person in our communities, it's so important to keep championing folk that historically hasn't had a voice for themselves and seeing the good in everybody, because everybody, more or less, has something really good about them, and it's just finding that and finding connection with folk. And it would be amiss of me as a neurodivergent person not to take this opportunity to say, doesn't matter if you're neurodivergent. I think sometimes historically living with a brain condition like that, it's almost like everything's 5 times harder for you than everybody else. And how come everything looks so easy for everybody? But see, with the right support round about you, you be a good person and use that staunch sense of social justice that comes naturally to you. And you'll do amazing things regardless of what that might be. So I thank everybody in this chamber for the opportunity to be Provost. I've also be Provost for everybody. And Jim, you're an absolute legend. Like, I'll be swimming in your biker bits trying to fill your shoes. But I appreciate so much you telling me in the early days it's all right to be exactly who you are, because trying to be somebody else is a waste of who you are. And I've always been able to drive forward with the knowledge that I'll be accepted for who I am. And I will continue to be the diversity of Scotland, me and Jim walking places, and there's East Ayrshire there. So you've got somebody else different, but somebody else who truly cares about the folk of East Ayrshire and who truly wants to drive forward a progressive, inclusive, forward-thinking community that we're all proud of. So thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you. Oh, he's a lovely, thank you. So I'll open for election of Deputy Provost and for nominations. Councillor Reid.
Thanks and congratulations again, Provost. Just in terms of the Deputy Provost role, I think it's important that we look at the kind of geographical spread and someone that kind of complement you in your role. And I think we'd like to look at someone that's about over 20 years experience that I'm aware of, and that's respected throughout the community and throughout the council. And for that reason, I would like to move Councillor John McGee as Deputy Provost.
Thank you. You got a second?
And congratulations before I second that as well, Provost. Yes, I second the leaders.
Thank you. Is there any other nominations for Deputy Provost? Oh, Councillor McGee or Deputy Provost McGee, do you accept?
Provost, thanks for letting me in. Yes, I'm delighted to accept and feel very honoured and privileged to be asked to take up the role. Thank you.
Brilliant, John. We're going to do a good job together. So, brilliant. Congratulations. Okay, so moving through, is there any declarations of interest for the upcoming business? Ellen.
In respect of item 7, Chief Officer of East Ayrshire Leisure, my daughter, but there are no financial implications.
Thanks, Councillor Friel. Okay. Anybody else? That'd be grand. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 3 is the previous minutes.
I propose the previous minutes. Provost.
And I will second Councillor Todd. Right. Agenda item 4, Cabinet Committee minutes. Okay. Is there any questions or points to raise in the last council minutes? No? Okay. Cabinet and committee minutes. Leader.
Move them all as a correct record.
Second that, Provost.
Lovely. Is there any questions or corrections to minutes? Yeah, everybody's happy. So we're moving on to agenda item 5, the annual Treasury Management Review for 23-24 and the mid-year update report, and I'll hand over to Robin to go through that report. Robin.
Good morning, Provost. This report's the annual Treasury Management Review for 2023-24, incorporating a mid-year update for the current financial year. In line with the SITFR Code of Practice for Treasury Management and the Prudential Code for Capital Finance, this has previously been submitted to Governance and Scrutiny Committee for consideration and is now submitted to Council for approval. As the report meets the reporting requirements of the Treasury and Prudential Codes, it should provide Council with a reasonable degree of assurance that Treasury management activity was undertaken in accordance with the strategy statement agreed in advance of the financial year, and that the Prudential and Treasury indicators have not been breached or exceeded. The report does include a significant amount of financial detail which supports the presentation of the Treasury and Prudential indicators and reflects the overall Treasury activity throughout the year. This detail and the underlying transactions feed into the wider financial management and reporting processes of the Council that conclude each year with the approval of the audited annual accounts. This provides an additional layer of assurance to members around the conduct of Treasury activity. Part 1 of the report, commencing at paragraph 9, provides detail of the actual performance during 2023-24. This sets out information confirming actual capital programme financial performance at Table 1, the utilisation of the financial flexibilities that were available in 2023-24 from service concession arrangements at Table 2. At Table 3, the Council's underlying borrowing requirement, termed the capital financing requirement, whilst Table 4 at paragraph 27 sets out the long-term repayment profile of the capital financing requirement. Table 5 confirms that external borrowing remained less than the CFR, the capital financing requirement, providing assurance that borrowing has only been taken for capital purposes and not to fund recurring revenue expenditure. Tables 7 and 8 provide an analysis of the Council's loan portfolio and the maturity profile, whilst Table 9 highlights new borrowings taken during 23-24 of £75 million at an average interest rate of 5.24%. The Council's investment activity, which is the management of our short-term cash balances, is summarised for members at Table 10, the majority of which was transacted with the Debt Management Office, which is a part of the UK Treasury. Provost, Part 2 of the report from paragraph 70 onwards provides members with information relating to the current financial year and notes the current projection for capital outturn at Table 11 and resultant impact on the CFR at Table 12. From paragraph 89, there is commentary on the current and future projections for borrowing and external debt levels, and this confirms these as being within the limits approved within the Treasury strategy. Paragraph 90 and Chart 2 illustrate the most recently added prudential indicator, which is the liability index. And this highlights the required borrowing based on our existing debt levels and projected borrowing requirements going forward. The cost of projected borrowing in this year and its sensitivity to interest rate movement is summarised at Table 15. Affordability and sustainability of the current and future capital investment activity are key indicators, and the figures set out from paragraph 103 and Table 16 and 17 show the forward projected financial cost for both the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. Specifically, the report confirms that the General Fund projection remaining within the 8% affordability limit agreed by Council when setting the Treasury strategy and this year's budget. Provost, I do appreciate there's a significant amount of financial information contained in this report. However, hopefully it provides Council with a level of confidence in the operation of the Treasury function. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 of the report, which is to approve the Treasury activity for 2023-24 and the update for 24-25. Provost, with your agreement, I'll stop at this point, but I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Smashing, thank you. Leader.
Thanks, Provost. It would be my intention to approve the recommendations, but just I think there's an opportunity here to maybe for yourself, the Chief Financial Officer, to maybe make a comment on yesterday's UK government budget, what the possible impact it is for our own budget, and what the risks are subject to Barnett consequentials being received by the Scottish Government. I know that numbers will be getting crunched as we speak, but just if there's any indications, just what the risks are and what the impact could be.
So through you, Provost. So budget was at 12:30 yesterday afternoon, and since then we've been analysing the figures and analysing what's known as the Red Book, which has more details than simply the speech that was presented yesterday. What we know so far is that £3.4 billion of consequentials will be provided to Scotland. We don't have details of what that will be comprised of. It's made up of a whole number of things. We've seen significant shifts in capital allocations yesterday, and so that will feed through, as will, based on our own East Ayrshire budget assumptions, the assumption we have around the increase both in the national insurance rate from 13.8% to 15%, but more importantly, the change in the national insurance threshold for employers from £9,100 to £5,000 will be fully funded, and that's a position that we hold in line with the rest of councils in Scotland. Director of Finance Executive met yesterday, and at that meeting we were aware of some of the impacts on the budget. We are crunching the numbers. We're being supported by external forecasters and commentators too. But in terms of our own budget, we imagine that there will be some further update provided mid-December, when the Scottish Government have had time to analyse the information that came yesterday. What we do know is that the budget yesterday was fairly complex in terms of some of the changes it made, and will require some quite detailed analysis by Scottish Government colleagues prior to that being disseminated to councils. But I'll provide a report to group leaders and to members once we know more.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody else got any questions or comments? You're getting off lately. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 6, and it's an update in the Council Strategic Framework 23 to 27, and I'll bring in Pauline Minory to speak through the report. Thanks, Pauline.
Good morning, Provost and elected members. I'm pleased to present this update on the Council's strategic plan, focusing on progress made during the last year, together with recommended updates to the plan and proposals for a period of public engagement. The report also includes detailed updates on the cross-cutting strategic reviews that were agreed last year. And with your agreement, Provost, I'll shortly bring in Joe McLaughlin and Ian Tuff to speak briefly to the employability and financial inclusion reviews. Members, this is our second annual update report following the introduction of the Council's strategic plan in 2022, and it reflects a wide range of activity and achievements in support of our Council's 6 themes and the associated key priorities for each theme. As you know, this plan provides a link between our community plan and the Council's service improvement plans, and it ensures there's consistency and alignment across all of our key plans and strategies within the Council. The plan was prepared against a backdrop of significant financial challenges, increasing demand for services and changing demographics, all of which remain today and which continue to inform our approach. For each of the strategic plan themes, the report includes a summary of the benefits that we seek to deliver, descriptions of some of the activity progressed in the last year, and an overview of the relevant performance indicators. Of course, the information presented in this report doesn't sit in isolation, and throughout you'll find hyperlinks to a range of other documents where we report on progress and performance across our key strategies and priorities throughout the year. Just last month, Council held its annual joint meeting with community planning partners and had the opportunity to discuss the wider community planning performance and local outcomes improvement plan. Today's report builds on that work, reflecting our joined up and aligned approach. In addition, later this morning, members will also be asked to agree the Children and Young People's Services annual update. And again, you'll see this work of the partnership reflected in the report before you now. Throughout the body of the report, from paragraphs 23 through 50, we've provided a summary of some of the action taken and the progress made in relation to each theme. Importantly, however, we all want to understand what difference this activity is making for our communities. And at paragraph 19 of your report, we've put in a high-level representation of the changes in the performance indicators compared to last year. And for each theme, you'll find a summary of those indicators included in the body of the report. There is a lot to be positive about. Around 2/3 of all the indicators have shown improvement compared to the previous year, while around a fifth have declined. And I thought it might be helpful just to pick out a few of the indicators for you. So I'll highlight some of those first where we've seen improvements. There's a continued downward trend in unemployment. Our figures have been consistently higher than the Scottish average, but in the last year that gap has reduced. We saw more school leavers in positive follow-up destinations. More pupils are registering for and taking free school meals. There's been an increase in the number of adults who say they are supported to live as independently as possible at home. Satisfaction with their early years services increased, and we also saw an increase in children meeting their developmental milestones, and our recycling rates increased over 50%, with satisfaction rates with refuse collection also increasing. However, we've also seen performance decline in the last year, and this is in some areas that I know are especially important to colleagues and to elected members. The percentage of children living in poverty has increased slightly, although within the report you'll find details of our Fairer Futures partnership, an initiative that has been launched recently with Scottish Government and our third sector partners, which seeks to address child poverty through targeted tests of change in our communities. This goes together with confirmation of our plans to develop a dedicated anti-poverty and inequality strategy for East Ayrshire. We've also seen further increases in deaths due to alcohol and drug misuse, with drug misuse deaths continuing to be higher than the Scottish average. In addition, the percentage of council tax collected fell by 0.5 percentage point to 94.8%. The appendix to your report contains up to 6 years' data for each of the indicators, a chart that shows direction of travel over that period and comparisons with the Scotland-wide position. We've also included indicative targets for this year, which was a key action from last year's external audit best value thematic inspection. The next section of the report, paragraph 51, provides a brief overview of the Council's approach to transformation. Earlier this month, the Accounts Commission published a report on transformation in councils, one of a series of reports that they've published providing insight into how local government nationally is responding to some of the key challenges. We've been advised that our council will be in the first tranche of reviews for year 3 of the best value thematic themes. The Accounts Commission has identified the theme of transformation, how councils are redesigning services to deliver them more efficiently. So paragraphs 51 to 57 of the report provide an overview of how we as a council have embedded transformation within our strategic plan and across our wider strategic framework, ensuring that it's linked to our priorities and that it supports our long-term financial sustainability and resilience as a council. The report notes that throughout our strategic plan and our service improvement plans, there's a wide range of activity designed to support transformational change through innovation, modernisation, reducing duplication, and reducing demand through early intervention and prevention. And we'll be highlighting a lot of that work to our external auditors as they take forward their review. The next section of the report at paragraph 59 highlights some of the key areas of activity which we want to ensure are reflected in our strategic plan going forward. Importantly, this has been informed by community engagement over the last year, updates in relation to other elements of our strategic framework, and also our 3-yearly community plan review. So this includes the development of our anti-poverty and inequality strategy and our Fairer Futures partnership, which I mentioned earlier. It includes demographic change, a programme of best value service reviews, antisocial behaviour, risk management and collaboration and cross-cutting reviews. And with your agreement, these will be embedded in our strategic plan and updates provided in future reports that we provide to you. Paragraphs 73 to 106 provide updates on our 5 cross-cutting reviews. And before handing over to Joe and Ian to talk about employability and financial inclusion, I just wanted to jump forward to paragraph 107 of the report, which refers to the consultation and engagement proposals. It's proposed that this will take place in advance of the budget, and once again we'll look to take this forward using a variety of methods of in-person and online methods. As arrangements are finalised, we will issue a briefing note and ensure you receive full details of the engagement process. Provost elected members, over the last year, her services have undertaken a huge range of activity in what continues to be an extremely challenging environment, and we are able to evidence improvements in the indicators that you agreed back in October 2022. Our communities will always be at the heart of everything we do, but this kind of scrutiny and feedback does matter. It helps us to build trust and credibility, and it helps us to do even better for those that we serve, to focus on change and in delivering the services that improve the lives of local people. The report reflects only a fraction of the work that colleagues are doing every day in support of our strategic plan and our community plan. So if there are areas where you would like further information, we're always very happy to arrange for this to be provided or to meet with you for a further discussion. I'll now hand over to Jo and then to Ian, who will talk to their cross-cutting reviews. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. So members, we're on page 111, paragraph 77, and its employability. It builds on that report you saw noted and approved elements of in June. It's an important report, an important cross-cutting review, given that it takes the priorities not only in the strategic plan, but also the ambitions of all of you in terms of employability, skills and training as we go forward. Since that phase 1 report, the review team and I have spent considerable time progressing phase 2. That phase 2 looks at the number of staff employed in that staffing complement. You'll recall from the June report, that's about 80 FTE. At the moment, we're looking at job outlines and we're looking at skill sets and contractual obligations, and I'll speak more about that in a moment. We've also touched on and reviewing quite detailed the externally commissioned programmes, which was an intrinsic part of that phase 2, and also the funding that is available within the council from both our own funding, but from No One Left Behind from Scottish Government and also from UK Shared Prosperity Fund from UK Government. We know from yesterday's budget that the totality of the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is £1.5 billion a year across the UK, has been reduced to £900 million for the next year. That gives us an indication. It lets us put in place transitional arrangements for the 1st of April. You'll remember, members, that there was a cliff edge at 31st of March in terms of Shared Prosperity Fund. So that further indication yesterday is helpful in letting us plan for the 25-26 year. What it does mean, though, is in terms of the government's intention that this reduced funding level is there to provide stability in advance of a wider local growth funding reform taking place, which will be notified of in due course. We also took the opportunity this year to look at the two funds and the balances and projected spend within that. And we have, wherever possible, aligned that to your wishes around jobs and training and skills within the council. We've also looked at the computer system, the Yeti system, which is the fundamental basis of employability, both internally across the council, recognising that there are 5 services within the council that provide employability services, but importantly, the ability for the external providers to utilise that system too, so that we have the totality and the detail of all interventions that are taking place. We spent significant time on engagement sessions with staff groups and also with some of the main external providers. Those external provider meetings are due to conclude very shortly. We had to carry them over because some of the main providers were unable to attend, but they're so important to our deliberations that we have reconvened and plan to hold up one further session to take that forward. But the notes from those engagement sessions begin at paragraph 93, they conclude at paragraph 95. They are really interesting. They've been helpful to myself and the team. I'm grateful to staff and to the providers for their openness on the process that we adopt, and also the guidance in the ask they have provided in terms of how things could be made better, not for the council and not for the providers, but for the people that are trying to find employment and the people who are on that journey. How do we help them? How do we align that delivery plan within the strategic plan and also the aims and ambitions of yourself to that process? Both staff and external providers really content and really grateful to council for you setting aside the ability for that special reserve to be used where there is cliff edge funding. So again, the people on programmes don't just see an end of funding halfway through or whatever and then have to take part. Paragraph 97 sets out the wider implications, and it's a review that has evolved as we've done it. It evolved again yesterday afternoon with the announcement from government. What we are keen to see and recognise the will of council is that there is a larger emphasis placed not just on employability within the council, but wider than the 4 walls that are the East Ayrshire Council. an opportunity to align it more to jobs and training, to the £6 million you set aside, which is due to end very soon. We've managed to spend that money and create those incredible apprenticeships. But at the same time, recognise that the Ayrshire Growth Deal has within it opportunities for further skills and learning. And we know from the wishes of UK government, both past and present governments, that they look to the region. And in fact, Shared Prosperity Fund was allocated not to East Ayrshire Council, but the £17 million was allocated to the Ayrshire region and then was disaggregated to the 3 councils. And so that regional approach, not just to learn best practice, but to make sure that as a council and through the will that you've already stated, it doesn't matter where the East Ayrshire resident works, as long as they've got work in the Ayrshire region wherever possible. So that's the update. We are working at pace. We are hoping to get the report before members in December, and that's really important for us. It's going to be a hard gig in terms of getting there, but we're very aware that the government signalled that 31st of March, Shared Prosperity ends. An interim arrangement will take place in April or 2025-26, and it will be replaced by something. So at this point in time, it's almost a wind down. It's a fresh piece of paper aligning your priorities to those of both governments in terms of employability as we move forward. So that's where we are, Provost, and I'm happy to hand across to Ian.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, members. Good morning, Provost. So the update on the financial inclusion review is summarised at paragraph 106 of the report. And just as a reminder for members, the headlines from that review was to integrate the 2 main services that provide some of that activity. That's the financial inclusion team that's based in the Health and Social Care Partnership and the Universal Credit team that's based in Housing and Communities. So the intention is still in that transition to creating that new integrated service has been progressing well. I know elected members greatly value the services provided by both of those teams, as do the members in our communities who rely on these financial inclusion and income maximisation services. So just very quickly, by way of an update on the activity that we've been taking since the council meeting in June when you approved that recommendation, that we have been looking to consolidate the budget across both of those services. Not an easy process given the variations in some of that budget profile, which includes not just general fund, HRA, but also with external contributions from Scottish Government, as well as others such as Macmillan Cancer Support, Objective Kinetic, which is Scottish Government money. One of the key areas that we've been focusing in on is the staffing structure, clearly bringing together 2 teams to create a new welfare rights service. We have spent a lot of time and effort working to make sure that that staffing structure is right, that we are relying on the support and advice that we get from people and culture colleagues around job evaluation processes, and pleased to say that that is progressing well. We are also committed to continuing that staff engagement with the staff group and making sure that they are completely signed up to and recognise the benefits of bringing together those 2 teams into a new arrangement. Behind the sort of back office systems that support this work is really important. There is an opportunity that we've identified through the integration of the 2 teams to look at a new management information system. And again, that is a priority work stream that we're taking forward. And lastly, the work that both of those teams, financial inclusion and universal credit, do is not in isolation from work that is done by other partners. And we recognise that we have to maintain that network of partners. So third sector and other DWP, SDS, etc. are very much part of that process going forward. We are still on track to have the new service in place by the 1st of April 2025, and grateful to the support that the implementation team received from colleagues in health and social care, housing and communities, and people in culture. Thanks with those comments on that cross-cutting review, Provost, and rather than handing back to Pauline, I would simply highlight that the recommendations on the overall report are then for members' consideration at paragraph 8, page 82. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Ian. And opening the floor, Leader.
Thanks, and particularly like to welcome the report. I think there's a kind of thread right through it in terms of employment and employability. And it reflects well on some of the presentation that we made to the cause presidential team last week down in SL 66. and the other third, where I was pleased to see last week's Causal Leaders meeting that the presidential team were, quote, blown away by the presentation that we gave them and some of the groundbreaking work they were doing. But right at the heart of it is our young people and people that have difficulty getting access to the job market. It just shows you some of the innovative ways that we're able to help folk and absolutely transform lives and families. And I think that's something we all really appreciate what's going on. Pleased to see we're getting a bit of reassurance in terms of levelling up, and I think we need to see the detail of that. But I think there's a bit of anxiety there, but hopefully we can get some reassurance. Sure, the system does need change, but I think some of the work that had already been done for the Grand Hall Palace Theatre and Remake Kilmarnock, some great innovative work that's taking place there, and that needs a bit of reassurance as well that we can continue to build on that. Similarly with financial inclusion and income maximisation teams, that's something that this council has always tried to encourage, and now with the kind of landscape in terms of that changing a wee bit with the recent announcements, their services will be maybe drawn in the months to come. But appreciate the direction of travel going. Just touch some of the aspects of this. It's a big paper with loads of detail in it, and I think we can be proud of this paper as a council in the direction we're going, despite the difficult circumstances that we face ourselves in. And thanks, Provost.
Leader, thank you. Councillor Barton.
Thanks, Provost, and congratulations on your appointment. It's a huge paper, so much information in it, and I'll just try to pick out a couple of questions and I'll just ask them in one go, if that's okay, Provost. So my first question is on building a fairer economy. I know we support local businesses through our community wealth building procurement model, ensuring we spend local whenever we can. Unfortunately, as we see in page 89, that business survival rates have fallen slightly. I mean, we know the two biggest expenditures for businesses are employee and energy costs. And with yesterday's anti-business UK budget, it sees an increase in employer national insurance contributions and the recent energy price increases. What additional support can we as a council offer our hard-working local businesses, who I may also add are also hard-working people? So that's my first question. And my second question is on the improving community wellbeing. And it's on the healthy life expectancy. Although it's welcome to see female healthy life expectancy increasing, we know that male healthy life expectancy is decreasing. And just try to understand what steps we're taking to fully understand and get the underlying reasons for this trend. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks. David McDowell, last week, if that's cool, yeah. Find a pew.
Thanks, Provost. In terms of the first question about the support for energy, we do have a business gateway support there that we do work with businesses to provide an assessment of that business, their expenditure in terms of energy and how to reduce that energy. There's also support there for energy assessments of the building and the building fabric to see what opportunities we can look at to work with that business to reduce their energy consumption. And indeed, we have a grant facility to offer them. It's a small amount of grant that Cabinet approved previously, but we allow grant opportunities to be provided to businesses to take some of the kind of the things that we can achieve. Community wealth building grant as well also obviously looks at helping with some of the kind of physical work. So we have had businesses that have refitted, boiler systems to reduce their energy consumption. So there's a wide range of different supports there. And obviously at a kind of strategic level, we provide the Net Zero Accelerator programme that we deliver. We've run that through 50 businesses so far, which is is providing businesses with strategic support to deliver how they can migrate from their current business operation right through to deliver a programme that helps them achieve net zero. So hopefully that answers your question, Chair.
Thanks, David. Graham, that all right?
Well, it certainly covers the how we can help the energy cost side of things. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks. And I'll pass to Craig MacArthur for your second question. Thanks,
So
Craig.
just picking up the part round about healthy life expectancy, I think we spoke about this at length at the previous Community Planning Partnership Council joint session, so there was some concern raised then as well. I think like everything that we do around about the kind of the joint approach round about the IJB and the Health and Social Care Partnership strategic plan is very much designed round about how do we improve some of these indicators. So people living longer is a good thing, but the bit about that healthy life expectancy within it is the challenge in there. So we do recognise that there's some real pressure on our services because of that as well. So every effort been taken to try and change the journey and the dial round about that. So there's a lot of work going on round about with us locally, but also with our partners within NHS as well in terms of some of the specific work they do round about how we can improve that the healthy life expectancy part of it. So that's probably an area where we're not going to see immediate returns, immediate response to it. So all the work around about caring for Ayrshire, how we start to look at things differently. Some of it will be generational. Some of it might take 2, 3, 4 years, etc., to actually bed down. But there's lots of work going on there that will hopefully start to address that and change it. The one big caveat in there and the concern, I suppose, that we share around about lots of this stuff just now is as budgets become tighter and we have to make spending decisions around about where do we invest our money. These are the areas that we absolutely have to have a focus on to ensure that the decisions we're taking don't have an adverse impact on some of these key indicators. So in terms of how we align those decisions to our strategic priorities, that's going to be a key thing for us going forward as well.
Okay. Thanks, Craig. Councillor Linda Maben.
Thank you, Provost. Just to refer to page 89, going back similar to what Councillor Barton was asking, the business survival rate, I'm keen to find out, is it a particular type of business that was failing, and what are we doing, if anything, locally to try and mitigate against that? And just because the startups fell by a third, again, is there anything that we can be doing? That's it, thanks.
David?
Thanks, Chair. With regard to that, we've had a number of businesses that we've been working with who do get into significant trouble. Some of the bigger ones, it's been cash flow. They have order books, but they haven't been able to have sufficient cash. So we have, through our Be Ready programme, we have management consultancy that we bring in. And so we have been working with some of these businesses, some successfully, others have, for other reasons, have ended up, they've looked to reduce their business footprint, but that has been quite successful. And that consultancy is coming in and looking right through the business to see how do they reform their business to make it back into a profitable approach. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think the other bit I was asking was the type of business. Is there a pattern in any way?
We've got last count probably about 3,500 businesses in East Ayrshire, and those range from the single one person business right through to some larger. There is quite a trend in a lot of growth in a lot of the businesses, but at the other end, what we're finding is that it's more of the kind of smaller nature, albeit some of those consultancies that we've had to step into, and without naming the names of the company, but they've been quite large companies, but you couldn't put your hand in one particular time, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. I was just asked by the Monitor Officer, Councillor Barton, were you happy with the answers given to your questions? Because there would be officers willing to expand on some of the questions that you asked.
Well, I was basically asking what additional, I know we're doing a lot of good work with community wealth building and stuff, and producing, trying to reduce energy costs for our businesses. It was just, obviously they're going to have this additional financial burden. I was just seeing if there's anything additional that we can do over and above what we're doing, but
David?
I think given that the budget's just come out, etc., I think the best we can do is perhaps take that one away and come back with further information. I just wasn't sure what else you were looking for. It was just for the sake of completeness. I had pulled up, but in terms of procurement strategy where we're at, but the procurement strategy feeds into community wealth building, and we did just report to the Governance and Scrutiny Committee recently in last year's output, and members will find information there, which I won't bog us down with just now, in terms of how much of the Ayrshire Council spend is diverted into the economy. So we continue in that, and working within the procurement process and the statutory frameworks, etc., we do continue to try and find the best ways we can to include as many local businesses in our overall economy, but without obviously placing the council in breach of the legal rules. So that is quite a good news story in terms of the tens of millions of pounds. And I just refer members at page 87, you'll see the link to procurement strategy, and within the procurement strategy is how much council business on an Ayrshire basis, and that's broken down to businesses based in east, north and south, but you have that breakdown. So it's more of the same in terms of trying to actually get them business, because that's the best way to support a business, is give them the work and create the income. But in terms of any other arrangements around further financial assistance, further grants, etc., I think that's possibly one where colleagues will need a little bit of time to look at the budget implications, maybe even see what the impact is in December, as Joe alluded to earlier, and then bring back within the next employability or economic development type paper or in a member's briefing if there's any further opportunity to provide that particular assistance. So I think it'd be one that would be under review.
yeah, thanks, I'd welcome that.
Thanks for that, David. Councillor Boyd?
Thanks, and congratulations on your appointment as well, Provost. The building councillor Barton's point, I felt I would still ask this. It's the 1.35 healthy life expectancy. When I read the figures, I had a shudder went down me, and I think a few as well, 59 years, late 50s. So Greg's kind of given some answers just to kind of drill down a bit deeper. You know, what is healthy life expectancy? Because, you know, that is a concern. And also, you know, the pension age is 67 and they're going to be increasing. So we're going to have, and a lot of businesses are going to have employees, you know, 8, 9, 10 years where they're out with healthy life expectancy, and that might lead to an increase in absence rates. So how do we mitigate that? And we already know that the council absence rates are far too high, and that's something we need to look at. So, you know, that just jumped out at me. You know, I find that really quite concerning. You know, if life expectancy is about 25 years on for that, you know, we expect, you know, is the average person expected to live with ailments or conditions for 25 years? You know, it might be handy for Craig to come back with what's the definition. Was it a survey, or was it actually, does it go by hospital appointments? Does it go by maybe operations? You know, because these figures are really low. Just be, you know, my amateur kind of looking at that, as I say, and there's a lot of knock-ons there. So maybe I'm just drilling a bit deeper into what Councillor Barton come up with there.
Through you, Provost. So I don't have the specific details to hand, Councillor, but I'm certainly happy to share that. But in terms of your thought process here about healthy life expectancy, what does it mean? We can get the actual definitions and how it's captured, but yes, ultimately what it means is people living with conditions for a longer period of time. So while, and this is wavered a wee bit just in the very recent years, but what we have seen is that life expectancy has been increasing year on year. COVID did take a bit of a change round about that, but there has been a steady trend to increase. But healthy life expectancy has been increasing or sometimes not increasing at different rates. So what you're seeing is a gap, an increasing difference between life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. And the difference in there, that gap in there, is where there's interventions required, whether that's through social care with ourselves, through primary care, people going to see their doctor more often, or into secondary care and hospital admissions. So there is that gap in there does present challenges to us in terms of providing services, but importantly for individuals that are living with those multiple conditions, what does that actually mean for them? And you're right, that might mean if they're still of working age, then are they able to still to do the job that they were doing previously? Does it increase the sickness absence level? So all of these factors are absolutely right to be considered, but there is more details around the list. I'm happy to share that with everybody in council, just so they can understand it in a bit more detail. But as I say, it is the life expectancy part of it, in terms of all the work we do, probably underpins actually trying to improve that and make sure that people, if they are living longer, they can live healthier lives for longer, they can be more active, they can contribute to economy, society, etc., if they're of working age. So happy to share that in more detail, Councillor.
I look forward to seeing that, Craig. That is interesting. Councillor Stephen Cannon. I've got a list of people to get through, so I'll get to you, don't worry.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks, officers, for the presentation. Just like one quick question and a quick comment. Following on from Councillor Barton's comments and Councillor Maben's comments, I think hospitality is going to be particularly hit because of the minimum wage and the national insurance. I think hospitality in rural communities particularly is the lifeblood of rural communities. So it's just a really ask if we can really have a focus on the hospitality sector going forward. So that's an ask question. The second thing was just a comment that obviously we've been talking about the strategic plan. Key part of that's digital strategy, and obviously the paper mentions technology-enabled care and obviously the innovation fund, which we've allocated funds to that digital strategy. During the week, on Tuesday, Councillor Maitland and myself went down to the digital hub, smart hub in Galston. So I just wanted to thank the team. So Janine Bain, who's the smart supports coordinator, Louise Lapsley, who's Thinking Differently program manager, Jim Murdoch, for those of you who don't know, senior manager wellbeing, planning and performance, and of course Joe. Just thank you all for hosting us and giving us your time. Obviously just now is a particularly busy time for finance team. On the back of that, which is probably the most important thing, Jim's agreed to have an open day at the Smart Hub so that all members can go and see what the great work they're doing down there. And finally, just to say that if you do go down, I mean, that's the third time I've been down recently, and when you go down, Janine Bain's enthusiasm and passion will show you that we're in good hands in terms of going forward with this strategy. And we are finally, based on my knowledge anyway, we are one of the leading councils in this area. So I think that's really important. So thanks.
Smashing, Stephen, thanks. Councillor Jim Todd.
Thank you, Provost. Couple of things. First of all, Councillor Boyd's absolutely right about growing older and things. I started work at 16 before I joined the Royal Navy, and I paid 1% of my wage to national insurance. And the letter I got back was, this will pay for your old age pension at the age of 65. So thanks Westminster for that, stealing that money off me. So the other one was, with the recent news of our two new MPs being appointed to the Scottish Affairs Select Committee. Good for them, well done. Can I ask that senior managers of this council ask for a meeting with our MP as soon as possible? Because the thing that's holding us back with this paper is not just the 71, not just the 77, but the Belfield interchange. And Lillian, and all due respect to Lillian, has said she will work tirelessly with this council to try and get something done with the Belfield interchange. So hopefully with her and Elaine's work on the Scottish Affairs Select Committee, we can push forward the Belfield interchange. Thank you.
Eddie?
Thanks very much, Provost. Just to follow up on that, you know, like the four MPs had reached out to myself, the other two council chief executives, the police commander, the NHS chief executive, and Ayrshire College, and we met them in this building a week past in Friday, and the range of discussions certainly included, you know, like connectivity and the Belfield, as you would imagine, the Belfield interchange as soon as we do that. That will always be in part of the discussions around everything we do, including the Ayrshire growth deal, and where it may go in the future. We'll continue to have the Belfield interchange, not just for the benefit of East Ayrshire, it's an absolute hub for the whole of Ayrshire. So that, you know, is clearly the line that we would need to go on. We are going to have to think innovatively about how we do it. We have seen the 10-year Transport Scotland plan, it's no on it. So we need to look at every opportunity that we can to make sure that that interchange is given the support it can. But yeah, absolutely, we've already met with the four MPs and we will continue to do that.
Okay. Councillor Linda Maven.
Thanks again, Provost. Page 91 down at the table at the bottom, referring to the percentage of council tenancies sustained for more than a year fell. I'm just looking, is that normal, and is there particular reasons why people keep tenancies for less than a calendar year? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Leah. No pressure to get a seat. Yes.
Thank you through you, Provost. So you'll see that there's been a marginal change in the tenancy sustainability by 0.3%. So sustainability has been a real challenge here in East Ayrshire since I've came nearly 9 years ago. And actually what we've seen over that period is almost a 30% increase in sustainability levels. What we see is tenancies ending for a whole range of reasons, some of which are positive, whether it be families coming together or other positive circumstances. But generally, we have seen significant improvements, particularly with our homelessness households, who are now sustaining tenancies for much longer than they ever have in East Ayrshire. And I suppose for me, that's a real success of the way in which we've applied our Rapid Rehousing Transition Fund money to good effect here. And we will continue to, I suppose, apply all measures to improve that figure even more. But it's something that we clearly monitor. It's just part of East Ayrshire Performs when it comes in this chamber as well. And we continue to have almost a daily focus on improving that figure.
Hi, do you want to go back in?
Sorry, I should have said, in relation to the comment, I noticed above it in the same table, that the children living in poverty has risen 0.5% now. I know we're doing amazing things, but that's just not acceptable in any way, shape or form for children. And I don't want to blame anybody, of course, but I just want to highlight for everybody to have a think about it.
Thanks, Councillor Maven. Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Provost. Congratulations on your new job. I just want to refer back to the good points that were made by Councillor Barton and by Councillor Canning, and it relates to the increase in employer national insurance contributions that were announced in the UK budget yesterday. Obviously, that is going to put a strain on small, medium and large employers. Now, the figures that I'm about to quote were coming from myself staying up late to watch Peston last night. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room, being interested in politics, stayed up and watched the same programme. Now, the Office of the OBR, there was a figure quoted in Peston that UK-wide, the national insurance, employer national insurance increase is going to result in, they quoted 50,000 job losses, which UK-wide, that's a sizable number. But obviously, we're interested in East Ayrshire in this chamber. So I just wonder, as a council, how will we monitor? I mean, Councillor Canning mentioned the hospitality sector, which is also important. But there's a couple of things. How will we monitor whether A, employers do start to shed staff or not? So is there an increase in unemployment locally being triggered by this national insurance increase for employers? B, will we have the ability to track what sectors these redundancies are being made in? And will we also be able to track whether they're coming from small, medium or large employers? So how quickly will we be able to understand what's happening locally? Because the OBR certainly does think that this announcement will have an effect on employment. 50,000 jobs UK-wide, but when will we know what the effect is in East Ayrshire and Ayrshire as a whole?
Eddie?
Thanks. I mean, I think we need to be clear about what we can do as a local council, and what, monitoring is done by national partners. So clearly some of the detail you're asking about would be DWP that would do that, and Scottish Enterprise that would be involved around that. We have our roles, in terms of what we do, but we work as part of a wider, network. And some of the real detail that you are asking there, when you come for us, we don't have that level of detail, and we don't get that level of detail other than through the national partners like DWP. So the information will become available, but the information will come down to us. That is almost information we can then use to target the resources that David and the team, can actually do. But that's where it comes from. It doesn't come directly for us.
No, that's absolutely fine, Eddie. So how quickly from those partners will we get the information? Because obviously, if there is a trend here that's triggered by this employer increase national insurance contribution that was announced yesterday, if it does start to have an effect, we obviously need to have that information as quickly as possible so that we as a council can then work out what we can do, if anything, to mitigate it. So from those partners, how quickly would any trends be highlighted to East Ayrshire Council?
Eddie, through you, I don't know, I suppose that becomes a question then, through you, Chair, of what is the current frequency of reporting from the agencies that have been identified. So I don't know if that's annual or quarterly, but I'm hoping my colleague, who looks quite pleased with himself in the back of the room, may well just know that. But the next question becomes, will they report more frequently in this? And we can't answer that, but we can tell members, I hope, shortly, what the current frequency reports is, and that's what we'd be expecting to work with unless it changed.
Through you, Provost, and just to follow up the Chief Executive's comments here, there is a multi-agency approach to this, linking in the DWP, Skills Development Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, etc. So if a business is in a circumstance where they do look at redundancies, we'll be advised of that through probably directly through SDS initially in confidence, and then we'll be able to take that forward. But as the Chief Executive said, that data is collected at a national level. So, but we do have an immediate update, and then that's when we look to, is there any support that we can put in there to help? But there is a dedicated PACE team that will step into businesses, to particularly large businesses where that is indeed required.
Okay, David.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, everybody. Councillor Barry Douglas.
Thank you, Provost, and can I just warmly welcome you to your new role. You've certainly had a good apprenticeship, and I think without a doubt you will be a fantastic civic ambassador for East Ayrshire. And great to see another woman in the chain. Absolutely, I think that is great to see. This council, and compared to many other councils, we do punch above our weight in terms of the percentage of women on this council. Not even in my own group, where we have a majority of women, which I'm delighted to see, and hopefully that can continue, and you can be that trailblazer for other young women who want to come into politics. I think it is sad that, with the greatest respect, and you are much younger than me, that you and I are the youngest members of this council. Yeah, and I definitely don't look at you. You certainly do more than me. But and then I think closely followed by Neil, and then probably Kevin. But we do need people significantly younger. So first of all, thank you for that. Want to say that absolutely, I welcome the comments in terms of Belfield Interchange. I will say that many years ago, a senior, no longer with us, member of staff on this council said that as part of the Ayrshire Growth Deal, when I questioned why we weren't pushing Belfield Interchange being the top priority for that, was, don't worry, with all the other projects that we're looking at, the Scottish Government will have to fund this if we do all these other projects. I think that was wrong, and certainly I welcome money from wherever it comes from to make sure the Belfield Interchange resolves, because it is a massive issue for the whole of Ayrshire. And I do believe it should have been a key part of the Ayrshire Growth Deal. What I would also say is, and certainly I look to members for Ward 5 who know their ward better than I do, that certainly a Diamond Junction at the bottom of Ayr Road is something that could take significant pressure off the Belfield roundabout and make sure that leads to significant economic growth in the south of Kilmarnock. Turning on to some of the points that have been made, and a bit concerned, but maybe Councillor Canning, I'm sure he's not against the national minimum wage having a record increase this year. I mean, I'm sure working people would want to make sure that they were receiving a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. And the point's just about small business around national insurance. Of course, the employment allowance has been risen, in fact doubling, from more than £5,000 to £10,500. So that will make sure that that element of national insurance contributions for small businesses and those who are paying less than £100,000 in national insurance contributions actually going down. I would say this was a budget yesterday for small business. But just in relation to that, perhaps David can give us some statistics, if possible, or can get it in due course, around how many small businesses we think would actually benefit from that proposal from the Chancellor yesterday. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Douglas. David?
We, so obviously once we'll have taken take all that information that we were getting fed through from government yesterday and analyse that, and then obviously we can look at how that works for businesses. But in general, it's that level of detail we haven't went into before, but we can certainly look at it and see how we can answer that.
Thanks, Dave. Is that okay? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Councillor John McFadden.
Thank you, Provost, and congratulations on your appointment. Going back to Councillor Barton and Councillor Boyd's point about the life expectancy, you know, the 59 years and 57 years is quite a bleak step, you know, everyone's healthy till then and then it all goes wrong. And I know, Craig, you don't actually have specific information here, but I wondered, is information available that shows graduations of how unwell people are, if you know what I mean? Because if, say, 59, they've got a sore arm or sore shoulder, I mean, can it be interpreted down that you could tell at what age the conditions were really encumbersome on people's lives? Is there a wider picture of where you know, how the unhealthy living grows, and you know, does it grow by certain percentages to certain severities? I mean, because it's quite stark to think, you know, from 59 onwards, people are just, you know, in one classification as unhealthy. They thought it would have been broken down more than that.
So I think in terms of the figures that we have access to, and we typically report on, the answer to that would be no. But I'm happy to pick up a conversation, part of this sort of broader sort of suite of information I have to want to provide back. A chat with public health, because public health may have a different level of analysis round about that. Maybe the bit that I didn't say, and it would be helpful just to comment now as well, is there is a difference in terms of life expectancy and health life expectancy, as you would expect, because we talk about it often between different communities. So we'll see the life expectancy in one community compared to another will be significantly different, and the single underlying factor in all that is deprivation, poverty. So we know that is a huge factor in there, so that we can certainly provide that level of breakdown when we do that in the information I'll provide. But in terms of the graduation of how we see people going from being healthy towards that unhealthy part of it, I don't have that analysis. It's not something we would typically see, but I'm sure public health may have something there. If not, then it's maybe a piece of work that we can get sort of commissioned from them if we think it would be helpful. But I'm happy to look at that as part of that overall sort of feedback I'm going to give back to two members. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. Eddie, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, Craig's absolutely right, and you don't get the detail. What you do get over an age span is how many long-term conditions on average that people are living with. And you actually see a significant increase as you go into old age, you know, and that. So, you know, you may have a very few people living with 2 or more long-term condition in their 50s. By the time you get into your 70s and 80s, people are living with 3, 4, 5 long-term conditions. So although that doesn't do the severity, you know, around that, it does actually show you that, you know, you can see, you know, people living with diabetes, with, you know, dementias, you know, like, with musculoskeletal, you know, like, issues, that goes with age. And actually, so you can see that type of chart that gives you that indication over it. But again, it doesn't give you the level of detail. Some of these figures can be quite challenging to read, because actually, if you look at the detail of this is if someone was born today, what would their, you know, like health and life expectancy be? For us, I would need to go back to 1961 and say if it was a health and life expectancy there. Obviously, you don't die at 59, I promise you. You know, like, you're okay. But you know, it is quite hard to read these, and actually, so this is the things. And there is going to be from Scottish Government in the recognition of all this, what they call a population health strategy. So again, this is if we all see this and all this plays itself out, then actually, you've seen the numbers, there'll be nobody employed in anything except for health and care by the time the next 30, 40 years goes on, because there'll be so many people requiring that. We cannot let this be the outcome of the health of our population. We need to change the health of our population. And that is really when you get into the wider roles of a council. It's not about really health and care. This is about housing, this is about planning, this is about education. And that's where, you know, as councils that in many ways that deliver public health, you know, rather than a health service. So it's really interesting for a council and how we need to be involved. But again, there is that touch, and I think Craig touched on it as well. When we're under such financial stress, we tend to deal with the immediate rather than the future, and that gives a big risk to the future.
Is that okay, John? Aye. I know a few years went to the older people's conference the other day at the Park Hotel, and I promise you, if you think life ends at 59, your concerns will be relieved if you come along to one of them. They do great. Thank you. That's fair. No, that's absolutely fair. Thanks, John. Councillor Cannon, did you want to come back in?
I just very briefly to respond to Councillor Douglas's comments. I don't think I had to mention the minimum wage because, of course, the minimum wage is important, and obviously we've got something called the Scottish Living Wage. That was really it. Obviously, my comment was more about the double hit, which is coming from National Insurance. Clearly, it wasn't about the minimum wage. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cannon. Councillor Maitland.
Just going back to discussing this 59 years, which is quite winning for me, a few months. We're still suffering from the Glasgow effect, and I think that shows it's never going away. I don't think the expectation was much higher when the Glasgow effect report first came out. I think it might be in early 50s and how it changed by postcode to postcode. So when we talk about early intervention and prevention, this is what we're aiming for. And as you said, it's all our partners, and the council is in a very, very important position to deliver this. So maybe Claire's generation might get a better result. Thank you. And Barry's.
Thanks, Claire. Totally. Anybody else want to come in? Everybody good? Okay, I'll be happy to approve the report. And do forgive me, and thank you everybody for your patience. I did skip ahead for the audit one, the offence, Joe. And I'd be all right to approve the audit report. I'm just checking. That's fine. Thank you, everybody. I realise we're getting on a wee bit, thinking that maybe if we take the leisure and culture review, then we can think about a wee break. That's agreeable to everybody. Yeah, that's fine. So agenda item number 7, leisure and culture review, and I'll pass to Richard Gleeson to give the report. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Provost, and good morning, members. Members, at Special Council meeting on the 18th of June 24, members endorsed proposals in relation to a review of leisure and cultural services, subject to further meaningful consultation with trade unions, stakeholders and employees. Purpose of this report is to provide Council with the outcomes of this process. Paragraphs 3 to 8 in the report detail the background of the review and reaffirm our use of the Best Value Review toolkit in this regard. This section also reflects on the continued pressures faced by us as a council and how we're required to be innovative and creative in the way we deliver services in order to sustain preventative activities aligned with the Christie Commission outcomes for the future. Following the council meeting on the 18th of June and subsequent meetings of the Kilmarnock Leisure Centre Board and East Ayrshire Leisure Trust Board, a detailed communications plan was produced as outlined at Appendix 1 of the report. This includes a range of meaningful engagement activity with staff across all affected services, communities, trade unions and young people. From paragraphs 10 to 13, you'll see the percentage of staff attending the engagement sessions across all services, and will note the high participation rates. Significant engagement has taken place with trade union colleagues. In the main, this has proved incredibly beneficial and has resulted in both management and trade unions working well together to support colleagues through this process. As detailed at paragraph 16 of the report, the position of the EAS union, supported by the NASUWT, has not changed, and they remain opposed to the proposals impacting instrumental music instruction. In regard to the IMS, additional consultation sessions between staff, officers and trade union colleagues was delivered in this regard. The IS position, however, remains as presented within the report. The staff engagement sessions were led by myself, service managers and the Chief Education Officer and East Ayrshire Leisure Trust's Chief Officer. Colleagues from People and Culture led on the individual subsequent one-to-one HR sessions in order to ensure appropriate professional guidance was available to all staff. Trade union colleagues were invited and indeed encouraged to attend all sessions. Following all engagement sessions, an FAQ document was produced to capture discussions across all meetings, and members can find this document at Appendix 2 of the report. As part of the consultation process, colleagues also held stakeholder engagement conversations, and an online survey was circulated, resulting in over 780 participant returns. The management team also held a number of informal discussion sessions with stakeholders who had further questions, points of clarity, or wished to express further their concerns and seek appropriate assurances. In regard to member engagement, we held 2 councillor conversation sessions, and I also arranged monthly meetings with appropriate elected member portfolio holders. Details of the full engagement are presented at paragraphs 9 to 25. Officers have been consistent in our consultation with all parties that these proposals do not impact on the frontline services being delivered to our communities in any way. There is no change to the services currently being delivered as a result of the proposals as presented. During the engagement sessions, it became clear that staff were seeking assurances regarding the sustainability of the Trust and the proposed trading arm function, which will be critical to the fiscal projections moving forward. To this end, Chief Officer East Ayrshire Leisure Trust held sessions with staff specific to this area, and feedback from a number of staff in regard to these sessions was incredibly helpful and to a large degree provided assurances sought. We've attached East Ayrshire Leisure's growth plan at Appendix 4 of the report for members' information. The East Ayrshire Leisure Trust Board, Council officers and Kilmarnock Leisure Centre Trust have agreed a number of key priority areas that will allow the proposals moving forward to be developed further, and they're detailed in paragraphs 26 to 52 of the report. Examples of key priority areas in this regard moving forward would be that the Board of Trustees would be supported to amend their various governance arrangements, a thorough risk assessment and health and safety policies across all services has commenced in order to ensure that there's a consistent approach to managing safety. Remodelling of the current service provision will take place to ensure services provide the best outcome for the community, and that means sharing best practice to achieve this. Support from East Ayrshire Council's procurement team will be available to develop a bespoke procurement framework across all services, again, in order to ensure the most efficient, effective and economic way forward is delivered. Work has commenced regarding the development of a trading subsidiary which will focus on, but not limited to, the following income streams: food and beverage, trading, event management, skills and training. If the proposal is approved by members today, the East Ayrshire Leisure Trust Chief Officer and I will review the current service level agreement between the 2 organisations to reflect the enhanced diverse range of services that will be delivered through the proposed model. Highlighted in paragraphs 61 to 67 of the report are the key governance details, including notes regarding the legal validity of transferring instrumental music services to East Ayrshire Leisure. This area has been a key focus and as part of the meaningful consultation exercise with stakeholders. Human resource implications noted within the report detail TUPE arrangements for staff across all services and details the proposed transfer of 110.92 FTE posts from East Ayrshire Council to East Ayrshire Leisure Trust. Members have fully acknowledged the concerns of the EAS and IMS colleagues and their focus in this regard, but I feel it important to highlight that the proposals before you today incorporate a broad range of key services, including the front-facing, vital preventative services delivered by vibrant communities. Indeed, the Chief Exec this morning has focused on our tendency and requirement to focus on the immediate rather than the future. And it is for this reason why the proposals are before you today in terms of ensuring the sustainability of those preventative services moving forward. In terms of context, I want to highlight the breakdown of staffing numbers in scope as follows. Facilities management, catering staff, 20 employees. Instrumental music service, 21 employees. Vibrant communities, 89 employees. In the delivery of the requirement for meaningful consultation, it's really important that we've listened to staff and colleagues as well as the wider communities. During the staff consultation, a key area of concern raised by staff was in relation to detail contained within paragraph 71, specifically the length of time employees transferring over to East Ayrshire Leisure Trust will be afforded the opportunity to apply for internal vacancies within East Ayrshire Council. Recognising the views and concerns presented by joint trade unions and employees' concerns, the Head of People and Culture has agreed that the period of 3 months for the date of transfer will increase to 6 months, and we'll keep that under review. In relation to the EQIA detailed at paragraphs 74 to 75, the EQIA screening document is provided at Appendix 6 of the report. The document outlines that there is no impact in relation to relevant staff, as employees will be subject to TUPE legislation and no change to service provision. As a result, there's no requirement for a full EQIA to be carried out. As previously detailed, there is no impact on the provision of tuition to children within East Ayrshire, and therefore no child impact assessment is required. Paragraph 77 to 80 notes the financial position and highlights the requirement for East Ayrshire Leisure to reduce the management fee on an incremental basis, reaching a minimum of £1.8 million by 29/30. This area is the subject of ongoing discussion and scrutiny to ensure that every opportunity is taken to work collaboratively to deliver the most efficient, effective and economic service possible. In the spirit of being open and honest, members, I have to say that I'm deeply disappointed with the inaccurate information being shared with our young people this week, suggesting that if should you approve the recommendations before you today, that their music tuition will be removed. As you know, this is totally inaccurate, and my assurance to members is that should you approve the recommendations before you today, the engagement and consultation with our young people will continue right up until the proposed transfer date of the 18th of August next year, as detailed in the communication plan. To conclude, this new approach to delivery of a range of services in scope will ensure that critical preventative services are developed and sustained at a time of increasing public fiscal pressure. In conclusion, members, can I draw your attention to the recommendations detailed at section 2 of the report, and both myself and East Ayrshire Leisure Trust Chief Officer Annika Friel are happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'll open it to the floor. Councillor Linton.
Thank you very much, Provost, and the latest to add my congratulations to your new role. Well done, Claire. I think, first of all, can I say how much I appreciate the amount of work that's been on when you see the consultation, the sheer number of consultations that have taken place to ensure this process continues to where we are today. It's quite commendable, and I particularly want to single out Annika for the amount of work that she's done with relation to bringing all those involved along on this journey. One thing that has sort of jumped out as me in my role as chair of the Kilmarnock Leisure Trust of Gallion is that I think it's really important that we see this as a merger. And I think, when we get to the stage where we're looking at, who populates the new trustees, there's a lot of really good people at the Gallion who have joined, recently, given their time voluntarily. And I'd like to think that, as we move forward with this process, that these people will be taken along in that journey. Thank you, Provost.
Thanks very much, Councillor Linton. Councillor Barry Douglas.
Thank you, Provost. And just in the same vein as Councillor Linton, as the Vice Chair of Kilmarnock Leisure Centre Trust, just it must be seen as a merger. I think that's absolutely correct. And I look forward to welcoming you to your place as a member of the Trust in due course. Just want to thank officers for the time and effort. I know that combining two very large organisations, particularly focusing on the Gallion and East Ayrshire Leisure, is not an easy task. And this has been many years in the making of discussions and thought process about how this could be done for this to come to this point today. So I welcome that. And as I say, welcome you, Provost, to your new role on the Trust. But thanks to Annika in particular and her team, and Rich as well, for what they've done. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. You're all here. Thank you. Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Thank you, Provost. I've two questions, one for Richard, one for Annika, if I may, if I take them both together. So as you highlighted, Richard, there has been some public criticism of this proposal, especially the transfer to the Trust when it's been stated it's a loss-making organisation. So if you can maybe elaborate further on the governance that will be there with the funding and the development of the service level agreement. And the question for Annika, I know from personal conversations I've had with Annika about her own personal journey with music, how much she values this type of education. So again, there has been some comments that people think this move will dilute or devalue the music tuition in East Ayrshire. So if Annika perhaps can explain her personal views and her aspirations for the service, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Cowan. I know from my year of working with East Ayrshire Leisure Trust that there is established robust fiscal planning and budget management in place. Indeed, that the organisation is sat with significant balances that it simply would not be possible to have if it were operating at the suggested annual loss as has been presented. So that's indeed not the case. I also know there's robust processes in place between the council and East Ayrshire Leisure Trust through chief finance officers, good offices, and I'll maybe bring Joe in as well just to add his comments in this regard in a second. In terms of the SLA moving forward, the financial element will be detailed, be very clear in terms of what external funding is being received by the council and for what purpose, and if that's to transfer, then the requirement for that purpose to specifically continue. And obviously there'll be arrangements in place for that ongoing fiscal scrutiny, as is the case at the moment. But perhaps through you, Provost, if I maybe pass on to Joe for any additionality before we go on to Annika, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and through you, Provost. So, you know, members, when I present East Ayrshire Reforms Report into that alternative delivery model section, I praise the Leisure Trust. I almost said our Leisure Trust, but the Leisure Trust, because I know from my colleagues in other councils that their own associated leisure trusts have been under incredible financial strain for many, many years. When you look at the last 10 years of the East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, yes, there were years in deficit, year 3 in deficit, but that was planned. Years 1 and 2 were £200,000 and £300,000 of surpluses as we gave time for that trust to form and create and pay back. The acid test for me is in terms of maybe the last 4 or 5 years, last 4 years in particular, the COVID years. It made a surplus on the revenue operating model each year. It carries a liability in terms of pensions. Every trust does. We do ourselves. And you know that when we present our accounts, I confuse you even more when I talk about our pension liability and pension credits and the like. That pension liability that exists within the trust is guaranteed and underwritten by the council. So park that to the side. The operating financial model is sound. It's made surpluses for the last 4 years, albeit Annika has applied for incredible amounts of external funding, which is to her credit and to the credit of the trust. But as we sit here today, and as I say, East Ayrshire performs regularly, I have no concerns about the operation of the trust. And in fact, I'm proud the work that Annika and the team do to maintain such an incredible organisation the way it does.
Annika?
Thank you, and thanks for letting me talk about the future and how exciting it's potentially going to be if these proposals are approved. I'm asked this a lot, Elaine, in the sessions with the staff that we've had over the summer. And to be fair, it would be wrong of me to set a vision for an organisation that one's not been approved yet, but also is not just about me or the management team. So the vision needs to be a shared vision that if this is approved, the full staff team are bought into and are empowered to be part of. However, although I'm not going to bring out my trombone for this particular session, I'd like to talk about the wider organisation and what that could look like going forward, and not just music. What I'd like to achieve if the proposals are approved is an organisation that's sustainable, that doesn't rely constant applications for external funding to core service delivery, that these services that are important to communities are actually embedded into core services. The work that goes into external funding applications that the teams across vibrant communities in particular do is significant, but that work is so important, so we should be looking at how we can make that a core service going forward. I'd also like to make sure that we've got an organisation that meets the needs of the community, but also supports our young leaders coming through and letting them see the opportunities to be part of a future that is all about growth and development. So whilst I can't talk about the vision in terms of the specifics and the services, that's what I would like to achieve if these proposals are accepted. However, having said that, anybody who knows me knows I've always got something going on in my head, and I've been dead fortunate to attend several activities in the last couple of months that I can see would work beautifully in an integrated organisation. The first one is Tales from the Teepee. I don't know if anybody was able to get along to the Tales from the Teepee at the Dick Institute. This was a collaboration between my own team and Linda's Creative Minds team. It's a beautiful memorial, a living memorial of what everybody went through during COVID. When we were asked to produce a memorial, typical of East Ayrshire. We didn't want a statue or something that would just be a one-off. And this living memorial is something that, bringing these two creative teams together, has created something lasting, something that we can continue to reflect on. So if you haven't seen it, and I know I'll always plug for my services, but if you haven't seen it, it's in the Dick Institute right now. But that was a fantastic collaboration that I was proud that both Linda's team and myself could be part of. I also attended the Communities Conference recently, and again, it was dead clear in that there's so much enthusiasm from communities about taking things forward and doing things better. And just think how good it would be if Vibrant Communities and my team could come together and provide that bigger resource for supporting and empowering communities going forward. I then, along with the Active Schools team, met with Sport Scotland. Sport Scotland are very impressed and are watching eagerly about what they see as an innovative approach to service delivery. They're keen to see how this integrated organisation could contribute to active recreation. They've stopped talking about physical activity and sport. They're now talking about active recreation in its widest form, not just sport, and how that can contribute to the new public health strategy. So again, an integrated organisation could really do something special for delivery of public health and prevention in this area. And then lastly, this week, I was absolutely thrilled to be able to attend and indeed host the inaugural meeting of the Dean Castle Pipe and Drum Band. So this is a group of individuals, instrumental music instructors, individual players and young people who are so impressed with the restoration of Dean Castle and the role that Dean Castle has to play in our local economy, that they would like to establish a band, a pipe and drum band, that can meet regularly at the castle, but also perform at the castle for our tourists, but also represent the castle and East Ayrshire going forward. This was a group, the turnout was great. It was the inaugural meeting on Tuesday night. I'm not going to say the Provost was there because no longer the Provost, but Councillor Todd was there with us. It was a great turnout, multi-generational, all working together with their drums and their pipes. Fantastic. It's going to be a great addition to the offer at Dean Castle. But already through WhatsApp, I'm getting the ambitions of the young people in this group to attend the Scottish competition on the 26th of July, the European on the 9th of August. And again, the young people don't want to stop there already. They're talking about the World Championships on the 16th of August. So the future, I think, of these proposals is quite exciting, and there's lots of opportunities. I can't set a vision right now because they've not been approved, and also it needs to be a shared vision, but I can see huge opportunities going forward for something quite exciting.
Thanks very much for that, Annika. That okay, Councillor Cowan. I can just imagine the acoustics in there. Oh, amazing. Councillor Peter Mebane.
Thank you, Provost, and congratulations on your elevation to carrying that big heavy chain around.
That's heavy.
I'm a trade union man all my days since I started my apprenticeship at the age of 17. I'm quite concerned that the trade unions aren't getting on board with this, that they are opposed to this. There's a loud vocal demonstration outside, playing the musical instruments, playing the death march as we come in. A couple of us went over and had a chat with them. They seem quite determined that this is just the start of their battle, and they will continue to oppose this in other ways. We also met one of the EIS reps who come to our group meeting. One of their concerns was that there wasn't an equality impact assessment done, or if it was done, it wasn't shared to them. Another thing they brought up was that the consultations were through the day, and there was no way they could possibly attend a consultation because they were actually working. So I'm concerned that the trade unions aren't with us on this, and I don't know if there's any other way to, or if the consultation's done to death and we can't do any more with the trade union. I would rather see them on board with us, and I'm concerned that they're opposing it. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Provost. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Mabon. I think just for point of clarity, really the teaching trade unions are the ones that continue to oppose the direction of travel. I have to say that the conversations with other trade union colleagues have been really quite positive. They've been on the journey with us. If we go back to the initial conversations that we had with them in May when we started this consultation process, they too were concerned about the direction of travel, but they can see and have worked with us and have listened in terms of the merits and the opportunities that the proposal presents in terms of sustaining the services and protecting jobs. And that has been the consistent message throughout the consultation through all the trade unions. I would say that I still am absolutely confident that our efforts in taking the EIS forward with us on this journey have been significant. We had 2 sessions before we came to members back in June, when all trade unions were invited to attend. We've met with the EIS on 8 occasions, one of which, a further occasion was when the staff themselves wanted to meet with Annika without the trade unions there for discussion. But 5th of September, 25th of September, 26th of September, one-to-one started, 11th of October, 24th of October, 28th of October, that there has been significant number of discussions with the joint trade unions and specifically with the EAS. And the EAS throughout that process, I think we've been pretty open and honest with each other. And at a national level, they've made their position clear that they have a strategic national position, and they'll not move from that. But they recognise, and I recognise, accept and recognise that. Notwithstanding that, I've made the point very clear that this is about protecting the individuals that are currently delivering that critical key service, and of which we are agreed on. In answer to your latter point, Councillor Mabon, of course the door's always open and we'll continue to have those discussions if this proposal is approved by members today, and you have my assurances that will be meaningful and genuine. I think they've made their position quite clear on it, and I'm not sure it will change, but notwithstanding that door will always be open, and we will keep trying to take them with us on this journey if approved today.
Thanks, Richard. Is that okay?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Provost. On the point they also made about an equality impact assessment that wasn't done or wasn't shared to them or something.
Sure, David.
Just to confirm that, and Richard covered this in the presentation, and it's stated in the report that the way the equality impact process works, you do the initial screening, and the initial screening then directs in terms of whether or not the full assessment is required. And as Richard covered in his presentation, the initial screening disclosed, as members can see quite clearly from the report, that the only effect of the proposals within this report is to move all of those posts and those services and teams under council management across to the Management of Leisure Trust. There is nothing within the proposals that would trigger any requirement for the full screening at this point or at any future point unless future proposals emerge. There is nothing required beyond what was surfaced, and I can certainly confirm that we heard the grievance on the consultation. The grievance in the consultation that was put in June and applied to a consultation that occurred from June to October. So there was an element of clairvoyance in the grievance. But within that context, even just last week, the actual document we're referring to was submitted by management, represented by the head of HR and Richard at the grievance hearing we held last week. So I can certainly assure all members that the screening document, which is also attached here and is in a public report, was shared with the EIS through the consultation process and is recently in the formal grievance hearing last week. The point being that should the Leisure Trust, as you've heard from Annika in the future, should there be any future proposals, then all due process will be followed and any appropriate screenings and consultations will take place if they're required. But at the moment, the net effect of these proposals is not to change anyone's job roles, their terms and conditions, their pay or their grades. It's to move them under new management, and that sits within the activity that's been undertaken and the level of assessment that's been conducted. So the bottom line is that while one party have adopted a position that seems to be born of principle, principles can be expensive, as we all know.
Thanks, David. Amanda, is there anything you'd like to add in relation to the trade unions?
Thanks, Provost. In relation to trade unions, just exactly as Richard has said, you know that we had a bumpy start in prior to the June council, sorry, but we have been working tirelessly with our trade union colleagues, and all local government trade unions are now well on board, and in fact are sitting, we're wanting meetings about 2p transfers, which we obviously couldn't have because we've not got the approval yet to move forward. The only issue, as Richard's also said in his presentation, that they had was about the time frame, about being able to apply for jobs, given that we've got a restriction in the number of posts we're advertising. So we've listened to that and we've adhered to that, and they're more than happy to go ahead. As David says, the EQIA was shared and discussed at length at the grievance last week. In addition to that, Richard's office issued the papers to all trade union colleagues, including the one that you've mentioned last Friday, which, as you see in the appendix, included that EQIA as well.
Thanks, Amanda. Is that okay, Peter?
Thank you, Provost, and thank you, David and Amanda, for the clarification.
Thanks. Councillor Claire Maitland.
Thank you, Provost, and may I congratulate you on your heavy chains too. Back in June, the first people that you had to convince that this was a good idea was the 32 councillors that are sitting in this chambers, and we gave you a very hard time, and Annika too. However, you've answered our questions. I've enjoyed the consultations. I know the word robust is out there a lot, but it has been robust. I like what Joe said about the history of the Leisure Trust finances. I was serving in the audit and performance for that at the time, and very interesting times. I would actually like to thank everybody that sits on the Performance and Audit Committee, because it's unfortunate when the misinformation gets out there when we're actually sitting in quite a healthy position and the envy of other leisure trusts throughout the country. So I would like to thank everybody who's served there, and that's cross-party. So we saw how passionate people are when they think they're losing a service. I want them to understand they are not losing this service. In fact, we are protecting this service going into the future. I know Annika said there we can't project, but we have to project. We're obviously constantly projecting into the future. I'm also part of the trustees on the Galleon, and merger is the correct word, Ian. It will be a merger, and most of the staff who go from the Galleon are actually getting better terms, conditions, pensions and pay. So I think that's something that needs noted as well. Going forward, actually, just before I do that, the main question we asked that there would be no impacts on frontline services. That was the very first question that we all asked back in June, and I think that's been answered. And we're talking about prevention and intervention. We need these frontline staff, so that's there. So what we're doing looking forward, like Barry, like Ian, is good governance, because we have good governance. But obviously all the terms and conditions, etc., are going to change of our governance, and I do hope that we'll get some new trustees on board. It won't be me. I stand down next year, but if I could stay longer, believe me, I would. But the trust says no, I've got to go. So I would thoroughly recommend that we accept this paper and that we go with the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Councillor Jim Todd.
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, can I just echo what other speakers have said? We were very critical at the time for all the right reasons when it was first brought to us, and I'm sure it'd be the same for other groups and other councillors. And the questions we asked took a long time because we got right into the nitty-gritty. We were looking at everything. I have been convinced that this is the right thing to do because devil's advocate and all the rest of it, but everything came back positive. If I can use the analogy, use the example of our talented athlete programme, which is very, very successful. It's the envy of most councils up and down the country on a sporting aspect. Principally on the music provision, and that's the smallest part of what we're proposing here today. But even in the music aspect, the potential for our young, talented musicians to be all they can be when they're under East Ayrshire Council education and they're still learning can be incredible. I went along the other night to the launch of the Dean Park, Dean Castle Pipes and Drums, and the smiles and all the young, and there was a lot of young folk there. The smiles and all the young folk and the brilliant facilities that they're going to get to use. I go to a lot of music concerts, things under the auspices of our talented musicians. I go as much as I can. I can now go to a lot more because I'm released with some duties, and I will do. I'll be at all of these concerts and seminars and music interludes to support our young folk. The only way is up. It really is. The things that Annika and the team can access, the funding they can access that we couldn't as a council, opens up a whole host of possibilities, and I fully support this. I have listened to a lot of people privately. I've had individuals come and asking questions, and I've asked questions of officers, and I am happy to agree to all the recommendations here, and I will fully support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd, and I think it's your duty very much to go and support local music and everything, absolutely. Councillor Barry Douglas.
I think I was coming back in, was it?
Oh, what do you know? Okay, no worries.
Oh, no, I was. I have remembered. Absolutely.
I thought
Right.
maybe he's just waving to me.
The kind of important bit here is just to say, I mean, obviously this, the element in terms of instrumental music affects our young people. I just wonder really if we can maybe elaborate on the discussions we've had with young people, what young people are telling us, because there may be concerns that adults have that maybe some of our young people don't have. And I'm just keen, particularly obviously with a young person's cabinet, what are the young people telling us, or what have they been saying about this? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Douglas. I'm going to pass on to Annika in a wee while, because I know she's been talking to colleagues who've been leading on that. And I think I mentioned in the recent communications that the young person's cabinet had been stood down during this period because it wasn't current. So we've reached out and we've had conversations with Chair and Vice Chair through Suzanne Clark's good offices. In general terms, the stakeholder survey really gone out of our way to be proactive in consulting with groups, individuals across the piece, any individuals who sought clarity in terms of any of the proposals presented, legal governance, etc. Parent councils, Linda has been to the Parents' Council steering group and encouraged that information to be cascaded, with parent councils being asked to reach out for us should they need any more information. Head teachers, we've engaged with them and asked them to speak to our young people as well as part of this process, and indeed the staff that have been involved in the process, particularly in terms of the Vibrant Community staff. I know they've engaged with a number of young people throughout the process in terms of their respective areas, and our hope and requirement was that instrumental music colleagues were to do the same. But through you, Provost, I'm going to pass on to Annika. She maybe touch a wee bit more in terms of the dialogue and the discussions with the cabinet members and any of the young person engagement that we've had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Provost. Because we've not had the formal opportunity to do that through the Young People's Cabinet, Suzanne's team and myself have taken every opportunity to have informal conversations with young people, not just those involved in instrumental music, but young people in their entirety. Suzanne and her team have done a great job in working with the Chair and the Vice Chair of the Young People's Cabinet and explaining the proposals in detail to them about instrumental music, but about the whole service. And the reaction is, once they understand the true information and that there's going to be no impact on their service, and actually there's opportunities for them for new things and getting involved in new things. For example, we talked about the model of potential expansion into community music or introduction of a traditional music opportunity for them as well. They're actually quite positive about it once they understand that there's going to be no impact to their music tuition. And again, this week when the Pipe and Drums at Dean Castle, I took the opportunity just to have an informal conversation with some of the young people that were there and their parents, and when they understand that actually they're still going to get their music lessons and that's not going to change, then they're far more open and optimistic about what the future could be.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Barton. You know how to run up. If they just Councillor James Adams.
Thank you, Provost, and please accept my congratulations for your position, your new position you've got. I was part of the Galleon Centre Leisure Trust and indeed East Ayrshire Leisure Trust before I became a councillor, and there can be no denying that there was certainly duplication of provision. So I think the move towards a union for those two great organisations is going to serve our communities and our public particularly well. The wider reach that the Leisure Trust would have, should this go through, would have significant ramifications for the health and well-being of our own communities. We spoke on the previous point about life expectancy. We know through health, well-being, physical activity, people live longer and they live better. Not just the physical attributes, but indeed the mental attributes of health and well-being. We're facing a mental health tsunami in this country, and by introducing this union, I think would go a long way to addressing some of those issues. So I'm very supportive of that, and indeed the opportunities that the union would bring for further development. In terms of the music provision, like many others, indeed I'm sure like everybody here, we've been approached with concerns, and you know, if somebody's concerns are their concerns, the legitimate concerns, I'm heartened by both Annika and Richard's willingness to engage in further consultation, and hopefully that would alleviate some of the concerns that the members of our community have, and I look forward to that going well, going smoothly, and addressing some of the problems that people may well have going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor John McFadden.
Councillor Douglas asked my exact question on my behalf.
That's fine. Is anybody else like to come in? Councillor Boyd.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks Richard and Annika in particular for the massive amount of work with this and the various meetings over the last few months. Just a few comments myself. Early on, we noticed the term duplication, in particular vibrant communities. To me, duplication means inefficiency. So part of this paper, removing duplication over a period of time, is very helpful. The instrumental service, you know, again, as Councillor Adams is saying, we've all been approached, you know, and Councillor Cowan asked a question. There was questions about the younger musicians moving into secondary, but we seem to have reassurances that that continuous service will remain in place and nothing will be affected. So that's good as well. Just one wee question, just for more clarity. It's on page 158, and it's just some of the questions that are asked. It's question 49. How can the budget be protected with ELT but no EAC? You know, so if the service, this is instrumental, if the service remains and budget remains within the EAC, it will be reviewed in the wider cuts that education need to make over the next 2 years. Totally get that. ELT's management fee will reduce, reducing the EAC with savings. Just a wee bit of clarity in that, just so we know how the ELT's management fees less than the councils. And the last bit, however, ELT has the opportunity to generate income and subsidised services that EAC doesn't. Totally get that. And Annika's explained that. That's a really good thing, that, you know, we can generate income with the different things within the instrumental service, bringing it on. Annika's explained that really well. It's just that wee middle bit. I'm supportive of it. It's just for that wee bit of clarity, you know. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor. So I think to start off with it, that in terms of control measures, the new service level agreement, if we, and I don't particularly like the terminology control measure, but in terms of that that budget which transfers, there will be specific elements detailed within the agreement as to which, how much of that budget will be allocated to which part of the service. And as I said previously, as part of my presentation, where there is a current commitment to delivering a certain part of the services that are proposed to transfer, then that will be detailed within the service level agreement. What's critical and in parallel and aligned with that is the business plan and the growth plan and the operation of the trading subsidiary within the trust, in order to generate that additional revenue that will then allow that management fee to reduce year on year, but still sustaining and continuing the commitments that we're making to you today in terms of those core services not being reduced. I don't know whether Annika wants to add anything to that through you, Provost.
I'm not sure that there's much more to add to that. I suppose the aspirations we have are for the trading company are allow us to generate enough income to meet the savings target that the council gives to us, but also to look at how we sustain and operate the services that are coming over as they are and allow them to grow. The business case, we're just finalising at the moment, the business plan, and what we've done in the business plan is look at what if we do nothing? What if this doesn't get approved? What will be the situation both for East Ayrshire Leisure and the services? Then we've looked at what's the middle ground? What if everything transfers and we don't have the growth that we're expecting to do through the growth plan? What will that look like for services? And then our aspiration and what we need to do to achieve our aspirations. Our business plan is going to come to the board, the next board on the 12th of November. So you'll be able to see the detail of that. And once it's been approved by the board, if indeed the board approve it, then it will become a public document after that point.
Thanks very much for that. That okay?
Yep, that provides clarity. It was just, you know, the public will maybe ask that as well. So it just provides absolute clarity. That I totally get it now. Yep, in the income generation. Thanks.
That's totally fair. Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Provost. I'm really supportive of the paper, and I thank the officers for their time, their perseverance and the consultation with me personally all the way through this. I know it's been trying, but I think you were sent away in June to do a job, and I think you have did that job to the best of your abilities. For me, I'm really gifted. I had 2 grandchildren that have used the external music services of the school outside the curriculum, and it's an organisation called EPIC. It stands for Endurance and Practice Inspires Champions. They're now part of the National Youth Pipeline. The pathway was set for them in primary six. They both started. They're now 3rd and 5th year pupils, and they say part of the National Youth Pipeline. This part of that, I'm so proud of them. The way they did that. The organisation was set up with external funding. They now have 110 pupils in the south of the authority that teach our national instrument 2, funded primarily by the Children's Lottery, the Robertson Trust, the Weir Charitable Trust, and the Granicky Trust. So opportunities are there. I look forward to seeing how our young people progress. If that is, I hope the recommendations go through today with instrumental music services moving over to East Ayrshire Leisure.
Thank you very much, and EPIC certainly live up to their name. Anybody else like to come in? Okay. Are we happy to approve the review? Perfect. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, officers. I propose at this point, maybe taking how long? I think for a break, half an hour. Okay, yeah. So if we come back at 20 to 1. Thanks, everybody. You can stop the recording. Thanks.